Welcome in, board members. This week is the last week of Black History Month. And I think that it's very important for us to recognize that our board is not only made up of the people that we interact with and talk to on a regular basis, or that come in and give us perspective, or that we even watch that have never seen us before, we've never met them in person, that we're able to watch them in real time, give us advice, broaden our horizons, and help inform the life that we're building for ourselves. Not only does our board consist of those people, but also of the ones that came before us, who laid out their paths or documented their paths to their success and to things that ultimately are still relevant for us today. So, for example, we have leaders, civil rights leaders, slavery abolitionists, people from times prior to today in this country who have already experienced some of the things that we are seeing resurface in 2026. It sounds insane, right? It sounds crazy, but if you really think about it, we're not that far removed from the time where they were making the choices and decisions that would ultimately lead to the abundance and the triumph that we have seen as a people in this country. So a lot of what they talked about, a lot of their thought processes, a lot of their hot takes are still so relevant and so necessary as we formulate a path forward as a people, as we try to address some of the things that we're encountering on a regular basis that are a bit concerning. And I think that there's something so particularly beautiful about where we are right now. You think about people like Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X. You think about people like them who were literally dedicating their careers, their passions to dreaming about and working towards a society, a lifestyle that ultimately they should have been afraid to dream about and dedicate their time to, because it would cost them their lives. And we are now living in a time where we're seeing literally the fruits of their labor. So not only are we experiencing some of the same things that they experienced, whether on the same level or a diluted level to an extent, but we also are experiencing the fruits of everything that they sowed back then. We have Black folks that have led this country. We have people leading industries who are thought leaders, who are out there really making a difference. We've had so many firsts, right, over the years, even since I've been alive, and we still continue to have so many. So we, as a people right now, especially those of us who are grown right now, we're sitting at at an intersection of what was and what was put in place for us to see the success that we see now, and the fact that we are living that and can utilize the wisdom of those before and capitalize on it now with the resources and access and knowledge that we have to truly make a difference. So I think about Booker T. Washington, which I've mentioned him before on here. Booker T. Washington, in his time, created or did a speech called the Atlanta Compromise. And part of what he talked about in that speech, but also just part of what his whole methodology, what his whole approach was to Black growth and African American development and assimilation into society post-slavery, was that, hey, we're not going to focus on trying to go back and forth with y'all about segregation. We're not going to focus on trying to drink from your water fountains, go to your bathrooms, or whatever else, right? We're not going to focus on that right now. We're going to focus on developing ourselves as a people and as a community so that we can be self-sufficient, because until then, we'd been in slavery. So that was a totally different ball game, obviously. to put it simply, to oversimplify it, it was totally different from what they were experiencing at that time. So we're going to focus on that first. We're not gonna, look, y'all stay over there, we'll stay over here. You know, if you want to help, cool. but like we're just going to do what we need to do to build ourselves up so that we can ultimately put ourselves in a good situation in society and assimilate and all of that appropriately. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about the rest of this later. And while I don't necessarily disagree with that approach, I mean, obviously at that time, there's just so much complexity to the world we're living in. There, at that time, there were so many mentality shifts that would have to happen in addition to education, in addition to just, mending or putting together something new in general for African Americans in this country, something that had never been experienced. But we don't have to do that, y'all. Today, because of people like him, because of people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, because of people like that, we don't have to compromise. We don't have to compromise. We can continue to forge forward with success and growth and thrive as a people, utilizing what we've learned from those before us while still fighting the same, unfortunately, and some new barriers that we face as a people that are simply related to civil rights, people, belonging, people feeling like they have a voice, people being represented everywhere and all of those things. We can fight those things while also forging forward and building up our community in such a way that we are sustained solely by ourselves. Now, that's not to say that segregation should ever be a part of the conversation again. I think we're past that. But we as a community have so many things that our forefathers, and by forefathers I mean of the African American people in this country, there's so many things that we have that they did not have, that they built. Whatever they put in place now, we have access to those things, the resources, the education, the rights. We have so many things now that we can use as tools to build ourselves up while still fighting the fight that needs to be forged on at this point. So the thing that we do have to do at this point is focus. We got to focus. We have to identify those things that really, really are going to ensure that we can see success as a people long after we are gone. So those before us focused on our rights, just simply us being able to do the same things and have access to the same things that everybody else did. Okay, that was one thing. Or not killing us for whatever reason. We worked to be equal under the law. They did at that time. Now we are, technically. So now what should we be focusing on? I think there are some things very, very necessary that should be strong for us to move forward and for us to see more prosperity as a people 50 or 60 years from now, the same way the folks prior to us did. Health as a people. And I don't just mean physical health, I mean mental health, I mean it all the way around, right? And that can mean us being more educated on the types of things that we eat, the way that we handle things with our health, so that we're not constantly having issues with whatever, blood pressure, high cholesterol, whatever, the things that run rampant in our families. So that we can address those things. Not only that, but also seeing more representation of people who look like us and who have the same backgrounds, who have the same experiences or similar ones, to help just create some comfortability for those that may be a little bit apprehensive into going and learning and doing more for their health. Wealth. We talk about generational wealth is like a super hot topic right now. So working on educating ourselves as it relates to wealth, finances, all of that, and how we build ourselves up as families, focusing on ourselves as families and as individuals, so that ultimately we're building up the I'm just going to use this this is an example, but the average net worth of the African American or the African American family. Like, we need to be working on building something financially, wealth wise, that sets us and our future generations up for success. Family, our family units. There are obviously some fragmented elements of our families, but there are also some very strong and consistent sources or forces in our families, such as our mothers and grandmothers and the women in the families that really and truly are the heartbeat of a family. But there are other struggles that we face on a regular basis. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I won't get into all of them, but you know what I'm talking about. There are things that we are facing as a people that I think are directly related to the fact that our family unit is not truly intact, or it's not as intact as it should be, or as our counterparts at this point. The sooner we can come together and get that piece together, the sooner a lot of these other things will change themselves, even as it relates to health and to wealth. So that's number 3. The other thing is education. I think that, of course, there are so many studies that have come out recently in the last year that have talked about how Black women are some of the most educated people, educated individuals in the country. I mean, you know, that is huge. But there's also this other side that talks about how pointless education is, or how college doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't teach you, like, oh, I can go make millions doing this, or I can go do this and be just fine. And that's true to an extent. However, education is so important. It is so important. Whether you go to a 4-year college, or you go to a community college, or you go to some kind of trade school program, or something else of the sorts, education is important. Knowledge is power. And the more that we try and defer people from going to school because of XYZ, I believe the more dangerous things will become. Now, of course, the people before us fought for education and for us to be able to have access to education. But I think that besides the fact that we need to be honoring it for that fact, we also have access to a lot of additional information without even stepping foot in a school, right? But ultimately, those credentials, that little check on your resume, that little whatever, can be the difference between you getting access to a certain opportunity versus not. And we can always create our own. That's absolutely 1,000% correct. And I believe in that 100,000%. But most people won't start off doing that. Most people will start off working in a different capacity as they gain experience, gain exposure, and start learning about what else is out there, and then they take the leap. So I think that having access to education and really taking advantage of it is huge. Now, is college expensive? Yes. Does that need to be fixed? Yes. Absolutely. That needs to be addressed. For sure. But nonetheless, education is extremely important. And I want for people to start looking at, I graduated from an HBCU. My parents graduated from HBCUs. A lot of my aunts and uncles graduated from HBCUs, my cousins. And I want for us to really take a look at valuing ourselves and our schools so much that we don't see them as inferior in a way, as far as the level of education that you get, to other schools. Because the education there, the people that are there, they're just as knowledgeable, they're just as passionate, if not more, about ensuring that you walk away with the most help and information and knowledge and wisdom that you can get. So I don't want to stay on this soapbox for long. But these are some things that were really, really on my mind. I think that taking some time to reflect on the mentalities of those leaders, those thought leaders from before, that are still so relevant today, will really help us formulate opinions and plans that will help us to navigate what we're seeing and what we're dealing with right now. We are in a difficult spot to an extent, for sure, but we are in a sweet spot where we have access to do things that they could not do, but we also have access to the things that they did before, the information that they have, the documented wins and losses and difficulties of their stories. We have that, and we have all of the things that they worked for us to have. And with that, we should be able to push forward as a people and make some shake. Now, there of course are things that are outside of our control that unfortunately will continue to be barriers that we're going to have to face. But I know that my challenge for myself and my challenge for my family and for my friends and the people that I'm around, and my challenge for you as my board, is for all of us to focus. Focus on the things that matter. Put your time and energy towards those things. Learn, never stop educating yourself. And I think that if we can all focus on doing those things together, we can make just as much of a difference in the lives of the people who are in this country, Black folks, brown folks, everybody else. We can make just as big of a difference as our ancestors. We have so much to work with and still so much against us. But I'm excited to see how the thought leaders of today and how each of us contributing will truly impact us now, but also the generations to come. So those of you who are out there who have, organizations dedicated to building up the youth, who have organizations dedicated to addressing homelessness in your areas, who have organizations and efforts dedicated to furthering education for young people, young people of color. You're exposing them to what's possible, to different career paths, to different lifestyles that they can then utilize and dream about without it risking their lives like it did MLK and Malcolm X. For those of you who are doing those things, continue. It's so needed, especially with our youth. For those of you who are out there fighting for what we need and what we want by way of politics, the law, whatever, keep doing what you're doing. What I need for us to stop doing, or for us to pay closer attention to, is how easily we are distracted by things like self-hatred, self-deprecation as a people. Malcolm X had a speech back in 1962, I believe, and in it he says, "Who taught you to hate yourself? Who taught you to hate the way your hair comes out of your head, the way your nose is shaped, the way your lips are shaped? Who taught you to hate yourself from head to toe?" And that does not just apply to appearance per se, right? He was talking about that and many other things, but who taught us to hate each other? Who taught us to, even if hate is a strong word, to combat each other in mediums that are so public and widely broadcasted, like social media, about things that ultimately are contributing to some of the struggles that we see in our community? So for example, on social media, a lot of what I'm seeing is discussions about who brings what to the table. Oh, well, Black men ain't doing this, so I'm going to do this. Or Black women ain't doing that, so I'm going to do this. Or whatever the case may be. Like, we're arguing about things that don't matter. What matters is those family units. What matters is how we're building wealth. What matters is how educated we are and how we continue to educate ourselves, even outside of college and in mediums like that. What matters is the health of our community, the mental and physical health of our community. Those things matter. So let's put more emphasis and focus into those things so that we will not be on the wrong side of history as things continue to progress in our society. So again, like I said, I don't mean to be on the soapbox. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I don't mean to be, I don't know, just on my rah stuff today. These things have been on my mind a lot. And I think it's so relevant to what's going on around us today that we needed to talk about it for real. So I would love to hear more from you about what your thoughts are, how things in today's world are impacting you, who have been your greatest inspirations as far as the people who came before us and laid the groundwork for what we're living in today. We always see, those shirts and those quotes like saying, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams. That is so true. So act like it. Because I'm trying so hard to operate as someone that they would be proud of and continue to pour into my community in the way that they did and help ensure that the folks that come after me, whether it's my children, my friends' kids, or just kids that I come into contact with or people I come into contact with in the future, I want for them to have the same level of wisdom and advice and perspective at their hands, at their disposal as they navigate what comes next that we do as we are navigating what we are facing at this point as a society. So that's all for today, folks. We'll be back next week with some other board members to discuss quite a few other things, but I am so excited for what's to come. I'm so excited for what I'm seeing in our community and in our families and everything. There are so many great things happening, and I cannot wait to see what comes next. So thank you guys for joining me today.